Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar brought to you by CTCSOL Group, based on the relevant webinar realized by the American Institute of Architects of San Francisco on the new IESNA-approved daylight metrics. The subject of today's webinar is natural daylighting in the built environment. Some logistics to begin with. You can send us your questions through the GoToWebinar control pane that appears on the top right-hand corner of your screen, and they will be taken at the end of the presentation. This means that you can send your questions to us the moment they arise, and we will tend to them as time permits at the end. We will have the audio on mute, so we can only take questions through the GoToWebinar interactive panel. At the end of the webinar, we will give you the link where you can download the full presentation, and as soon as the recording has been uploaded, you will receive an email with that link too. My name is Konstantina Kelaiditi. I am an architectural engineer and a London Metropolitan University graduate. I have worked as an architect in London and the north of Spain since the year 2000. And I am a member of the Technical Chamber of Greece since 2006. I have collaborated with the CTCSOL Group since 2010 as a technical and lighting advisor, and I recently joined the Natural Daylighting Applications team for Eastern Europe. An important point that has to be made is that the daylighting studies were conducted in the state of California, where factors like daylighting and optical comfort are taken into serious consideration when we are asked to judge whether planning or a building has been successful or not. In contemporary Greek reality, we cannot claim something remotely similar applies. The most common approach here is the use of electrical lighting systems throughout the day, regardless of the quantity of natural daylight available. Still, we believe that surely, little by little, day by day, by making small changes in the way we think and act on a personal level, we will bring about a change on a wider scale. So today's presentation has been divided in three main sections. Firstly, and most importantly, we will analyze the vital role that daylight plays in our lives, the rich and complex nature of circadian rhythms, and how we still live in the Middle Ages of optical comfort within the buildings we occupy. The insufficient penetration of natural daylight in our buildings, the reasons behind this, and tools that were developed in order to overcome these obstacles will also be mentioned. We will then describe ways in which we can efficiently bring natural daylight into the interior of our buildings, from the initial design stages, but also in existing buildings. It is important to point out that in times of crisis, as those we have been experiencing in the past few years, few new building projects are being realized. The focus, therefore, turns on the performance optimization of existing buildings and the minimization of energy consumption, of course. Concluding, we will talk about the ways in which CTCSOL Group can contribute drastically with interventions of high economical and technological value and offer solutions well adapted to the contemporary needs and aims of the market in the form of energy efficiency contracts, a new contract model in the spirit of corporate cooperation. But let us start from the beginning, returning to the basics. We are daytime animals. As such, we evolved through the millennia on this planet to be awake and active during the day and to sleep at night. Our body expects the day to be bright and night to be dark. But ever since the taming of fire and the invention of the light bulb in the beginning of the 20th century, we started claiming the night for our extracurricular activities. In essence, we tried to turn the night into day. The human side of this phenomenon, of lighting phenomenon, is that we experience light through our eyes that are essentially the extension of our brain. Something that biologists only recently discovered is that there are non-optic ganglion receptors in our eye. We see those receptors in orange color, consisting the surface of the retina. So, what are these non-optic cells doing in an optic organ like the eye? Well, they are doing something very important. These non-optic ganglion cells are very sensitive to blue light. Blue light is part of the full color spectrum of natural daylight that we know and expect. And once we receive that, these ganglion receptors become active and they send a signal back to the brain and say, well, it's daytime, let's do our daytime activities. And so the exposure of our eye to daylight starts this whole circadian response of hormone production, like melatonin, a hormone that acts as an antioxidant and protects the body from harmful radiation, serotonin, or the hormone of pleasure, dopamine, cortisol, etc. So it becomes apparent that the succession of day and night plays a vital role in this entrainment, as it affects our mood, our ability to focus, our motivation, learning ability, memory, blood pressure, body temperature, as well as reinforces our immune system. Circadian cycles are more comprehensive than we thought. So this wonderful and complex mechanism that is triggered by natural daylight is set in motion, the production of hormones and neurotransmitters, depending on the time of day and the quality of light. In this diagram we can see in a period of 24 hours, from the highest levels of testosterone at 9 in the morning and all the way through into the commencement of melatonin secretion at 9 at night, how important is this succession of light and darkness in allowing our bodies to operate smoothly? Researchers have found that light is the most potent signal for this entrainment and our bodies keeping track of our biological clock, making it apparent that sufficient daily exposure to natural daylight is of great importance. But what is really happening to our lives today? This is a graph showing daily exposure to daylight. This is us compared to our ancestors in terms of how much brightness we are exposed to. So the dark line is the primitive man who used to experience absolute darkness during nighttime and had this high level of brightness during daytime, while the red line is us. We get up and get in our car. We expose ourselves very little to daylight, and then we get back inside some office where we are sitting under fluorescent tubes most of the time, which have only a fraction of the full color spectrum of light that we expect as humans. And then we might go out for lunch and then come back into our fluorescent tubes again. And then there is another small bump there where we get back into our cars to go back home again. So our eyes are seeing less bright days and less dark nights as we progressed in only a few years since this change happened. So this is bound to have an impact. And here is the impact that I see. It's that we seek daylight both in our natural environment as well as our built environment, because it is something that is missing from our everyday lives. We always prefer natural daylight to any other type of light, and we are more attracted to well-daylit buildings, like that, for example, of a library. The first thing we do after choosing our book is to look around in search of a window, to sit by and read. And this is something that happens not only in the library, but also in the airport or in a restaurant. Unconsciously and at all levels of consciousness, we really do crave daylight. Here we can see some of the greatest benefits of natural daylight. Well daylit environments increase occupant productivity and comfort, improve their health, and lead to substantial energy savings, which is a very important factor as well, up to 80% or even more. At this point, we should also note the unique property of natural daylight to fully render the color spectrum. Here we can see different light sources, their respective color temperatures, as well as their corresponding spectral wavelengths on the right. Natural daylight ensures the most accurate color rendition, which is especially important in stores and supermarkets, where the visual quality of the products plays a key role in sales. But you should be warned, this does not only concern the industries of paint, varnishes, furniture and publishers, but could save anyone from something like this. Or sometimes you may choose an outfit at a store because you really liked its color, only to return home and find that something went wrong. This is not the outfit that I bought. This has a different color. So if daylight is this amazing phenomenon that we enjoy so little compared to our ancestors, why don't we construct buildings that are flooded by natural daylight, buildings that are a pleasure to use? Well, the main reason is that it is very difficult to design buildings with sufficient and good daylight penetration. The architects in our audience have surely experienced that. To begin with, the sun is a constantly moving light source. Weather conditions and cloud cover patterns change seasonally, which makes them the most unpredictable factors by nature. Orientation is a very important factor, but also one that we rarely have control over. Openings bring in light of completely different qualities, depending on the direction they point to. Glare is another issue. By trying to bring more light in, we often have undesirable results as glare goes hand in hand with direct sunlight. And last but not least, the occupants of a building will adjust the blinds of the windows to achieve personal comfort, which makes them a factor as unpredictable as the weather. So in order to design a naturally well-lit building, we need to take into consideration, first of all, the use of the building, but also all the above. This diversity of highly unpredictable factors cries for a well-informed design and planning. When architects are called to satisfy a brief, they will design the way most architects were trained to design, which is for the worst-case scenario. And so we end up designing the worst case. This is a building similar to so many other buildings, office buildings around the globe, a glass box that does not necessarily have a very bright interior. In fact, this particular building is dark and has a terrible visual quality in its interior. The light has a tint of blue that the occupants hate, and in order to counterbalance this effect, they will keep all the lights on all day long, even if the sun is shining outside. And when the sun hits the facade, as there are no overhangs, and the sun still shines through the tint, the glare forces people to close the curtains, which they then usually leave that way too closed, as they don't like the bluish light that comes through the windows anyway. So we have this terrible waste of materials and energy in a building that, in effect, achieves the exact opposite of what it was intended to. It makes us wonder what happened when this building was being planned. What line of thought led to this? Most probably the brief called for large windows with unobstructed view of the surrounding garden. So the architect responded with this tinted glass box in his attempt to reduce the solar heat gain by not more than 5 to 10%. But who's responsible for the visual quality of the interior of the space? Who ensures that optical comfort of the interior of a building is achieved when a project is delivered? Well, anyone would say that it should be the architect. Only the architect has no way of quantifying natural daylight, and so he doesn't have, or she, doesn't have a soundly based argument to support her design and ideas. If there is no metric for what you care for, then you don't get a chance to present it at the table of negotiations. So we need good, solid metrics in order to be able to calculate the quantity and quality of natural daylight that will allow us to maximize the benefits and minimize energy consumption in our buildings, but will also have a small error margin or most importantly, small variance from the actual result. They must describe the good, better and best natural daylight planning so we can compare different approaches. How much natural daylight is needed for optical comfort? What provides the highest productivity benefits? What is necessary for a healthy circadian rhythm? We want metrics that are sensitive indicators of good daylighting that allows designs to be optimized for the most energy efficient means to deliver comfort. With a starting point of no less than a dozen already in use but way out of date daylighting tools, including the infamous daylight factor, and after studies that were conducted for 2.5 years in 61 buildings, they came up with the new metrics. The study comprised of a questionnaire regarding general comfort levels experienced by occupants in each space, handed out to 5 lighting specialists and 10 users. The results were carefully compared with the results obtained by lighting simulation programs, and 2 calculation systems stood out as getting the closest to actual occupants' evaluations, since the reason driving all this is occupant comfort after all. The tools chosen were spatial daylight autonomy and annual sunlight exposure. In 2012, the IESMA, or the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America, officially adopted these 2 systems, with LEED following closely after. So these are the 2 indicators that came about to ensure the adequacy and quality of natural daylighting of the interior of a building. Spatial daylight autonomy, with a marker of 350%, measures daylight illuminance efficiency for a given area. More specifically, it states the percentage of floor area that is equal to or exceeds an illuminance level of 300 lux for 50% of the hours of use of the specific space. The preferred values are equal or higher than 75%, while when they lie between 55 and 75%, they are considered nominally acceptable. The other tool, the annual sunlight exposure, evaluates the potential source of visual discomfort from direct sunlight, otherwise known as glare. It is defined as the percentage of an analysis area that is equal to or exceeds the direct sunlight illuminance level of 1000 lux for more than 250 hours per year. The preferred value in this case is less than the 3% of the analysis area, while nominally acceptable values should not exceed the 7% of the analysis area. So now we have a new, much more accurate metric system for calculating natural daylight penetration, since it is sensitive to important factors such as climate, sun angle, orientation, facade design, space geometry, furniture layout, as well as blinds, which are not just decorative features. As a result, The new matrix rewards spaces with less sun penetration, meaning direct sun penetration, like spaces with well-designed overhangs or spaces with north orientation. They reward the spaces with deep daylight penetration, which means they might have a higher window head height, or they use light redirecting technologies. Spaces with multi-directional daylight, like spaces with windows on more than one wall, or with windows and skylights, a combination of windows and skylights. A piece of important information that came up through this study was that we have the best natural daylight penetration from the roof level, meaning that openings in the roof bring the natural daylight most efficiently into a building. On the other hand, the new metrics penalize spaces with no blinds in the windows and no overhangs. So spaces that admit too much direct sunlight. They penalize deep spaces, like spaces with large floor plans where a large portion of the occupied space is away from a daylight source. And penalize spaces with low daylight levels, for example spaces with dark or small windows. So therefore it is essential to plan things ahead. We need to gather everyone with the appropriate knowledge and experience at the table early. But let us have a look at some methods that can help us design well-daylit environments more easily and more effectively. Some of these is best to be implemented early in the process of designing a building, while others can be applied even in existing facilities. Here we can see some methods of introducing natural daylight in our buildings. We have vertical openings or windows, light shelves, atria, fiber optics lighting systems, and roof openings. Let's see them in more detail. Vertical openings, windows. It's a key method of achieving communication between indoor and outdoor environments. They are valuable tools if used correctly, and orientation and weather conditions are very important. Few people know how to properly utilize the vertical openings on the sides of a building. One of the major factors to consider here is the orientation of the building. Small openings and few in number are recommended on the east and west sides of the building so that we can avoid overheating in the summer. The same goes for the north side, where preventing heat loss during the winter is what we're looking at for. The south side is the favorite. The ideal case is to cover, now looking at this through a bioclimatic design angle. Bioclimatic design says that it's ideal to cover the south-facing facade with 60% of it covered in windows. It is a bit dangerous because these windows that face the south should be equipped with horizontal blinds in order to protect the building from overheating during the summer, and which with some proper planning can serve as architectural light shelves as well. A light shelf is a horizontal surface that reflects daylight deep into a building. Light shelves are placed above eye level and have high reflectance upper surfaces, which reflect daylight onto the ceiling and deeper into the space. The reflectance of the ceiling, therefore, is also important. This design is generally used on the equator-facing side of the building, which is where maximum sunlight comes from. So in the north hemisphere, it's the south side of the south-facing side of the building. In the south hemisphere would be the north-facing. During the summer, they help us They prevent overheating. But not only do light shelves allow lighting to disperse deeper into the building, but they also shade the area near the windows due to the overhang of the shelf. So it helps us reduce window glare. The atria, an atrium is a large open space located within a building and constitutes a common building feature since antiquity. Back then they used to take the form of an internal courtyard around which the daily activities would unfold. Modern atria, as developed in the late 19th and 20th centuries, are often several stories high and have a glazed roof and/or large windows. Atria are a popular design feature because they give their buildings a feeling of space and openness and light. Users like atria because they create a dynamic and stimulating interior that provides shelter from the external environment while maintaining a visual link with that environment. In effect, what we achieve here is that by reducing the depth of the plan of the building, we reduce the distance from the sources of natural daylight. We also have the fiber optics natural lighting systems. They are the latest technological achievement in natural daylighting. Their use for lighting is rapidly growing in recent years, since they are easy to install, easy to maintain, secure, and suitable for a huge range of lighting applications. And here we can see examples of roof openings. Such openings are skylights and tubular daylight devices. They have the best natural daylight performance since, as we mentioned before, the SkyVault is the best source of natural daylight. They do not allow sun glare to occur due to the fact that direct sunlight falls in through only when the sun is at its highest. And depending on the material used, we can have different effects of penetration and diffusion. But let's have a closer look at the kinds of roof openings. Skylights are widely used, mainly in the case of industrial type buildings. They are pretty popular as a solution due to the good amount of natural daylight they allow through, but also due to their relatively low cost of supply and installation. Unfortunately, it is not a durable solution as their material weathers and degrades with time, resulting in the reduction in performance and light transmittance, as well as causing leakages in certain cases. They also provide no protection from UV radiation. But let us take a look at a more sophisticated solution like the tubular daylighting device. It's a comprehensive system that uses no electricity at all and simply takes advantage of natural daylight's basic characteristics like reflectance and diffusion. They consist of a clear polycarbonate dome, which is kept always clean due to the way it is formed, and allows the unobstructed entry of that natural daylight, which is then directed down an aluminium tube internally covered with a highly reflective ceramic film of 99.7% specular reflectance, to finally be uniformly dispersed into the interior through a diffuser. They are usually installed in finished roofs of any roofing material. In the case of a concrete slab, it is best to create the openings during construction, during the pouring of the concrete, but installation in a finished slab is also possible. It is a system that is being applied around the world for over 25 years. In the Eastern European region, it is mainly installed in industrial type buildings as well as department stores and supermarkets. It allows no heat transmittance, protects from UV radiation, performs superbly in both new build and existing building applications, But the most important thing is that they have a long lifespan with zero operational cost and maintenance. Allow me to introduce to you the Ktisisol Group, a company which specializes in sustainable energy services for 17 years, with products entirely in the line of energy efficiency. Apart from the tubular daylight devices, Ktisisol Group offers the solar window, an innovative high-performance skylight with excellent quality but low cost, solar star ventilation systems with photovoltaic panels, the latest fiber optic lighting systems, and state-of-the-art LED indoor and outdoor lighting. After years of experience in design and installation of natural daylighting systems in Greece, Romania, Albania and Cyprus, and excelling in the energy services provision sector, Ktisisol decided that it had matured in the field of maintenance and operations management, and decided to expand its activity to the full management of a business facilities. Ktisisol, considering also the conditions prevailing in the market at this time, has started during the past 2 years implementing a new financing program for the corporations who wish to dramatically reduce their operational costs. In 2010, IPECA, the Greek Ministry of Environment, Energy and Climate Change, set the basic strategies, regulations and measures to develop the market for energy services in Greece, and the basis for a major development of energy service companies. 2 new contract types were also created, from which Ktisisol selected the shared benefit agreement as proposed model of collaboration, I should say. These are the phases of a project according to one such contract. We begin with a preliminary study. At this stage we record the existing lighting system and the structural characteristics of the building and make a first assessment of the client's needs. Then in the detailed technical design phase we conduct a photometric study of the spaces and calculate energy savings, keeping in mind other factors too, such as reduced maintenance costs and productivity benefits. We then pass on to the implementation phase, during which the contract is signed and installation of the equipment is fully financed by Ktisisol Group. Following installation, we perform corrective actions in the initial benefit calculations, and repayment of the investment costs begins by installments. The installments amount to a percentage of the savings achieved on the energy bill. So in effect, no extra costs are produced for the client. The cost of the energy saved covers investment repayment, the energy services company's fee, in our case Ktisisol Group, and saves a piece of the gain for the client too. Finally, with the settlement of the total amount agreed, ownership of the equipment is taken fully by the client. So we have now reached the end of our presentation. We will answer to questions we have received. In case questions arise after the end of our session, you are welcome to email us on the address in here, info@ktisisol.gr. Let me see what questions we have. One that has been asked by a few from our audience is, what is the lifespan of a tubular daylighting device and what is the guarantee that it carries? A tubular daylight device comes with a 20-year warranty, but its life spans longer than that. We have had no reports of equipment or material deterioration so far. None of our clients has experienced any reduction in light transmittance or thermal performance. So our systems produce consistent and highly efficient daylight as long as the sun still rises in the morning. Let me see if we have any more questions. You have been a lovely audience. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. We wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we hope to see you soon again in another presentation. Thank you very much and have a Happy New Year.